All right, we're here at my VermiHut indoor worm tower, and the last time we were in here, we did a major reset of this because I had left it alone for so long. And as we jump in here and look, you can see that I had put some bedding on the sides here, and the worms have done a pretty good job of starting to get to it, but it is also a little bit dry. And that's one of the things I want to check while we're in here is how do I determine how much food to feed and if I need to add more moisture. So let's go ahead and kind of undo the top here and see what they've gotten down to. And right here is where I put that last feeding zone. And the first thing we did was add lots of bedding to boost volume. And then we added a lot of my garden scraps like carrot tops, lettuce, kale, some strawberry tops, as well as a bunch of banana peels, a whole banana, some radishes and eggplant from the garden, as well as some sliced orange peels and bread crusts. And finally, from the garden, we also added some yellow squash. And of course, we gave them our usual amendments of worm chow, coffee grounds, and eggshell grit. And then we topped it off with shredded cardboard down the middle and on the sides like we said before. So let's go ahead and dig underneath and see if we can find any of that food stuff left over. And while we're doing that, we're also going to kind of evaluate the moisture and see what kind of ways we can do to fix any kind of issues there. And I'm seeing a lot of wiggling around here, so I'm assuming we've got some worms right here. And sure enough, right inside there, we've got a few. And this looks like some coffee grounds that are just kind of piled up. So I'm going to set those to the side and I will be breaking those up. And right here is a banana peel. They've definitely eaten everything that was kind of fleshy inside of it, and now they're taking a little bit longer to do the peel. And this looks to me like maybe part of a tomato because I see some seeds. I'm also smelling just a little bit of citrus, and right here we've got another pileup of worms. Check that out right there. They are digging into the coffee grounds. That's right, we did put a lot in there because we're trying to get rid of some of our coffee. And yeah, they are doing great. Let's go ahead and see if we see that whole banana. And under here, yep, I'm seeing some of the cardboard. Now let me just take this and show you up close. Now this looks to me like it's a little dry and it was underneath the food. So that right there is an indicator that I probably need to add a little bit more moisture into this bin. And typically I don't have to do that, and I certainly haven't for the last 6 months or so, but right now it is warm outside because we are in the month of May here in Florida, and our air conditioning is just ripping the humidity out of the air. So that tends to dry my indoor worm bins. And yeah, check that out. This is fantastic. Worms all throughout. The food scraps here, which are pretty indistinguishable to me. This looks like it might have been some kale. Looks like kale takes a little bit longer than a typical lettuce leaf does. And I'm also seeing a lot of used coffee grounds on there. So they are going to town on that. And let's keep digging, kind of search for the orange peels or, the banana. And this right here looks to me like it is probably the yellow squash that we had in here. They have hollowed it out, and all that's left is the skin. Pretty cool looking right there. We're going to keep feeding that to them, and eventually they'll get rid of all of it. Let's go ahead and dig over here. And yeah, no sign of that whole banana. I mean, no flesh at all. This is a little bit too fibrous to be banana parts. I think it could have been part of the orange slice because there was a little bit of flesh on there. But other than that, they did a great job in this feeding zone. So let's go ahead and dig towards the side and see if we see any kind of drying or, any other indicators of what we need to do with this bin. And yep, just from the top, we see some dry bedding. And I've got kind of a secret weapon to get this bin more moist, and I'm going to show you real quick. I found this bad Johnny in the back of the pantry, and it has been expired for about 2 years, and it's kind of looking a little odd in there. So this has a lot of moisture, and we're going to add some of this. So I'll go ahead and check the corners. Sometimes the corners of my worm tower get a little bit more moist than the other parts, and I don't know if that's because the condensation kind of drips down in that area or what the deal is, but things are actually looking okay on the sides. The moisture is pretty good, and you can tell it's kind of formed, and then when I kind of go like this, it breaks apart. That right there to me is a fantastic moisture. Some people run their bins a little bit more wet, and that is very good for, breeding worms, and the worms do enjoy a really moist environment. But for me, because of the humidity around here in Florida, it can go south really quick with a super moist bin because it's harder to get the moisture out out for me. But you certainly do not want to have a dry bin because then the worms can't breathe. Check it out, another little clump that just easily falls apart. And over here in this corner, definitely feels more wet. I mean, you can kind of see the difference between bedding turning to castings. It's a little shiny there and it feels fantastic. You know, at this level, it's perfect. So good thing that I got in here. It's been 15 days since we were in here. So we're going to do a good job of getting in here at regular intervals to try and get this bin back to peak efficiency. And for me, peak efficiency is rotating every 60 days and getting about 10 pounds of worm castings every 60 days. And unfortunately, this tray would already be graduated and harvested, but it only went through 2 rotations and that took 248 days. So I do not plan to go that slow anymore. So yeah, things are looking great. Again, we're getting some wetness down here in this corner. So that's good. I'm just going to mix everything up to try and get the moisture levels the same throughout, and then we will set up for our feeding. So the first thing I do with every feeding is I go in with more additional bedding. And that's important because the worms need both carbon and nitrogen in order to live and survive and give you great fertilizer for your garden. Now, as we dug through, there weren't a whole lot of food scraps. So that tells me that I can do a couple things. I can either feed them more or I can feed at shorter intervals. And it was 15 days since we were in here last. And because that's a good rotation for my schedule, I think I'm going to feed them a little bit more, but I only increase it just a little bit. So here's some of the food scraps we're going to put in there. Now, like I said, the bin is pretty good moisture, just a little bit lower than I'd like. So I'm going to need to increase the kind of wet foods that I put in here, especially because I put a whole nother layer of dry bedding in here. So what you're seeing here is some bread. Now this is really moist, but I did soak it in some water to dampen it up. But I'm also going to give them some good stuff like this lettuce, which is really probably 80% water, maybe even 90% water. And then I've got an apple slice here and another apple core, I meant to say. And then we'll give them one of these avocados. It's got a little tomato in there and a radish. And then I did want to put in some strawberry tops. That's kind of my worm's favorite, or I should say my favorite to give them, because I can tell when they eat away the flesh and leave the green. So I always know where the strawberry is. And I'm going to give them some of these papers that were on here because they were chocolate covered strawberries. If I didn't say it before, that bread was dampened by me. I just put it in a bowl and added some water to it. But we're going to add some more of this really good moist food like these cucumber slices from my garden, as well as a banana. We go through those a lot, so you're always going to see me put bananas in, and I'll put this other piece of lettuce in as well, along with some more pieces of cucumber and some broccoli, just like that. And then how about a little carrot for some color? Now here we go with something I'm pretty excited about, and that is some applesauce right there. Oh boy, that came out quick. It is a good thing I have 2 trays of dry bedding underneath because this is gonna kind of soak through. And I really don't like to have any kind of moisture down below in the basin of my worm tower. So next, let's go in with some worm chow. This is just some expired grains from my pantry that I just put in my Magic Bullet blender and get them into almost a fine powder. And if you want to see any of my worm bins or any of the different equipment that I use, I've got some Amazon affiliate links in both the description and the pinned comment if you want to check that out. And this is just some coffee grounds that I'm going to put in the feeding zone, and I'm also going to put here on the edges because I want to try and get rid of it a little bit quicker by disposing of it in the worm bin. And they do a pretty good job of eating up the coffee depending on how finely I grind my coffee grounds, and it's a great food source for them. And this right here is eggshell grit. They really like to come up and devour it right away, and they use it as grit in their gizzard to help them grind up their food. All right, I'm liking what I'm seeing, but there are some pockets that I think I can fit some more food in, and the executive producer hasn't told me to stop yet, so I'm gonna keep going. So we'll just shove some carrot top leaves in there. We'll put another cucumber slice there, some more broccoli, and an embarrassing amount of molded strawberries. I hate when I let food go bad, but the worms are going to eat it. So now we'll just put a thin layer of shredded cardboard over the top to add some more bedding for them. And then we'll just kind of bury it in just like this. So I hope by looking at this video and kind of seeing how I evaluate my bin and making sure that I don't overfeed, although this looks like a lot of food, 500. I've got about 4,000 to 5,000 worms in here. It's important to not just go in with, whatever amount of food you've decided before you looked at your worm bin. Go ahead and evaluate, and if they have left you a lot of scraps, then either don't feed them as much or lengthen the intervals of checking in on them to feed them. And the same thing with the moisture. Every time you pop into your worm bin, you should dig around a little bit and see how the moisture is doing, because you want to make sure that they have enough moisture to be able to breathe. They breathe through their skin, and you also want to make sure that there's not so much moisture that the food is rotting within your worm bin and creating gases that the worms can't survive in. So I think I'll add a little bit more to the cheeks again for volume, because what we'll find is, although the volume is staying a little bit higher right now, in the 2 to 3 weeks before we rotate, it's going to be hard to keep up with the amount of air pockets that the worms just kind of get rid of as they chow down on this bedding and the food. So finally, I'm just going to put a soiled paper towel over the top. And if you are enjoying this video and you're trying to figure out which kind of worm bin is good for you or where you want to start, go ahead and check out this video right here where I evaluate 3 of my worm bins to help you decide what is best for you. So with that, I hope you're having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing fantastic. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.